After 6 years, a door in the Himalayas has opened again. India and China have resumed border trade through Thula Pass, a move that may look small on paper, but in geopolitics it could mean something much bigger. Because this is not just about trade. This is about trust, this is about strategy, and this is about whether two of Asia's biggest rivals are finally trying to slow down a dangerous collision course. Thula Pass sits high in the mountains of Sikkim, at more than 4,300 meters above sea level. It is cold, remote, and difficult to reach. But for centuries it has mattered, because it sits on the historic Silk Route, one of the old commercial lifelines between India and Tibet. And now, after 6 long years of suspension, the trade route is active again. On the surface, this sounds like a positive trade story. But once you dig deeper, you realize this is also a political signal. Because when India and China reopen a border route like Thula, they are not just moving goods, they are moving messages. Let's be honest. This trade route is not going to suddenly transform India-China commerce. In fact, compared to the massive trade between the two countries, Thula's contribution is tiny. But that is exactly why it matters. Thula is not important because of the money alone. It is important because of what it represents. A visible sign that both sides are at least willing to keep some channels open. After years of deep mistrust. That mistrust did not appear out of nowhere. In 2020, the Galwan clash changed everything. After that, relations between India and China entered one of their coldest phases in decades. Military tensions increased, diplomatic trust fell, and even trade became wrapped inside a much larger strategic conflict. So when a route like Thula reopens now, it is not happening in a normal environment. It is happening after years of tension, suspicion, and careful back-channel diplomacy. Now let's be clear about what has actually resumed. This is border trade through a designated route, not a full free-flowing commercial border. It operates under strict rules on selected days, and only certain approved goods can be traded. That means this is not an open economic floodgate. It is controlled, limited, and heavily managed. The trade is seasonal, with activity allowed between May and November, and the list of goods is narrow, including traditional and locally relevant items, rather than massive industrial shipments. So if someone says, this is going to completely change India-China trade, the answer is no. But if someone says, this is politically significant, the answer is absolutely yes. As Sikkim, this reopening matters in a very real way. Local traders, border communities, and small businesses that depended on this corridor now get another chance to grow. Reports suggest there are around 600 registered traders in Sikkim who were affected by the long suspension. For them, this is not trade. This is livelihood. This is transport. This is action. This is the possibility of business coming back to life. In a region where geography is heavy to and that is one of the most important reasons in government. Because in border regions, economic activity is also a form of trade. When people trade, communication exists. When communication exists, tension can soften. And when border communities benefit, the state also gains a stronger presence in the sensitive region. But now comes the real question. Why reopen it now? Why after all the tension, all the military standoffs, all the distrust? The answer is probably simple. Both sides realize that permanent presence in either country. India and China are rivals, yes, but they are also neighbors. And neighbors cannot remain each other forever, especially when the economic and strategic consequences of complete isolation between two countries. This is what makes the following 3 years reopen more than a people. We see it as a confidence building moment, a small step, a cautious step, a controlled step, but still a step. What matters is in Asia, symbolism can shape reality. As reopened roads tell markets that trends didn't survive. It tells border communities that engagement is possible. And it tells the world that India and China are not ready to let conflict define every interaction. At the same time, we should not make the mistake of calling this a full reset, because this is not trust restored. This is not the end of rivalry. This is not a clean diplomatic breakthrough. This is cautious engagement, under pressure. Even as Thula reopens, the larger India-China relationship remains complicated. The border dispute is unresolved. The strategic competition continues, and both countries are still watching each other closely. That is why this move feels so important. But actually, It tells us something bigger about the world. It shows how geopolitics works in the real world. Not always through dramatic speeches, not always through wars. Sometimes through small openings, sometimes through trade routes, sometimes through quiet decisions made in mountain passes no one usually talks about. And those small moves can shape bigger trends. Because if India and China can keep even one trade route alive, it becomes easier to argue for more engagement later. But if that route closes again, it will reinforce the idea that the relationship is still trapped in mistrust. So yes, Nathula is just one pass, but it is also a test of patience, a test of diplomacy, and a test of whether the two Asian giants want managed rivalry or something slightly more stable. So the reopening of Nathula Pass is not just about goods crossing a mountain border. It is about whether India and China can create space for limited cooperation, even while the rivalry continues. That is why this story matters. One trade route has reopened, but the bigger question is still waiting in the Himalayas. Is this the beginning of a real thaw, or just a temporary truce?